Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're well. Welcome. Thank you for attending Aspire Australia's briefing today on the changes to the ENS Transitional visas. I'm Sarah Gillis, Registered Migration Agent and your host for this session. Here at Aspire Australia, we're on a mission to provide you with correct and timely information that will help you make informed decisions about your future in Australia and help you determine the best strategy to achieve your golden ticket of permanent residence. We're excited about today's session and the opportunities it may offer you. By the end of today's session, you'll understand the new pathways available to the ENS TRT visa. You'll learn about the concessions and gain an understanding of your own eligibility. So let's look at what's changed. Up until now, holders of the 482 temporary skilled shortage visa who have occupations on the medium and long-term list have been able to access permanent residence through the employer nomination 186 transitional pathway. The changes on 18th of March this year broaden the eligibility to include 482 visa holders with occupations on the short-term list. This is a fantastic opportunity for thousands of 482 visa holders and others right across Australia. So who in particular does this apply to? The changes apply to specified persons who hold 482 visas with occupations in the short-term stream. Specified persons is defined, and there are two groups. The first group are the holders of, or those persons who held a 457 visa on 18 April 2017, or on or before that date had applied for the 457 visa and was subsequently granted it. This is the same cohort who, up until March this year, were able to access the grandfathering provisions towards the ENS TRT. And so they have a continued eligibility pathway. The second group of specified persons are those who, during the period of Australia's border closure, spent at least 12 months in Australia on any visa. And that period is between 1 Feb 2020 and 14 December 2021. Those persons must be currently employed by an active business and will be eligible to apply through this new pathway from 1st of July 2022. The first group on the left, the 457 visa holders or former 457 visa holders, are eligible to apply straight away as long as you meet the eligibility criteria. So as well as broadening the group of applicants who can apply for the TRT visa, there are a range of concessions that will also apply. The first of those is the employment concession. The standard requirement to meet for the ENS TRT is that the 457 or 482 visa holder should have worked on that visa for 3 years for their employer. Now, for the 457 cohort, they only need to meet the requirements of 2 years in the preceding 3 years. This reduced period reflects the criteria that were also in the grandfathering provisions. So if we look at a couple of examples, the first being the specified 457 visa holder. So this person obtained a visa in May 2017 as a cook, and at that time the visa was granted for 4 years until 2021. The employer renominated that person prior to the expiry of their visa in January 2021, and they now have a visa until January 2023. So they had a 457 for 4 years, and now they're on a 482 visa. So are they eligible? Well, they held a 457 visa on the relevant date. Actually, I've just noticed a mistake there. Let's say that was 1st of April 2017 instead of May. So they held a visa on the relevant date. They now hold a 482 visa. Their occupation's on the short-term list, and they've in fact been employed with the employer for 5 years, so they do meet the 2 out of 3 years requirement. So they would be eligible to apply for the visa now. Sorry for that mistake. I'm going to correct that so that when you get the copy of this recording and slides, that will have the correct date there. The second example is for 482 visa holders. So the person was granted a visa in May 2020 as a graphic designer, and since that time have been living and working in Australia on that visa. So are they eligible? Well, the person was certainly in Australia during the relevant border closure period, 12 months. They hold a current 482 visa and their occupation is on the short-term list. They're currently employed by an active business. Now, they started work in May 2020, so they have not yet completed 3 years experience on the 482 visa. So they would only be eligible in May 2023. And because their 482 visa will expire prior to that date, they will need to be renominated by their employer for a further 482 visa. And then once they reach the 3-year mark in May 2023, they'll be eligible to apply for the 186 visa. The next concession is the work status concession. So in the normal case, applicants for the ENS Transitional visa would be required to have worked full-time for the duration of the visa, and periods of unpaid leave could not be considered towards that 3 out of 4 year period. The concession now is that periods of part-time work or unpaid leave due to COVID-19 can be counted towards the 2 out of 3 years or the 3 out of 4 years. So due to COVID-19 could cover a range of circumstances, for example, where the business shut down due to lockdowns that occurred in various states of Australia, or where there were reduced operations in the business due to the inability to import or export materials, the lack of staff, or for general economic reasons. So those would need to be explained in the application, and the claim for part-time work or unpaid leave could then be claimed for the eligibility period. It is important to note that the visa holders should still have been employed during this period, so their employment should not have been terminated, just the conditions of employment may have changed from full-time to part-time, or they were required to take a period of unpaid leave. The next and possibly the most important concession is the occupation concession. So where up until now, applicants would need to have an occupation on the medium and long-term skills shortage list, that is now abolished for applicants who are the specified 457 visa holders. That is, they held the 457 on or before 18 April 2017, plus those who've spent 12 months in Australia during the relevant period of Australia's border closure, and at the time of application for the employer nomination are employed actively by a business. The abolition of the occupation list now opens up to many, many more occupations. And this is, as I said, great opportunity for many people who have stayed in Australia during COVID, haven't gone back to see family or friends, and Australia has gained the benefit of their work during this period. So let's just recap. The visa we're looking at is the 186 Employer Nomination Transitional Pathway Visa. This is now available to 482 visa holders with occupations in the short-term stream. There is eligibility for those who held or had applied for a 457 visa prior to 18 April 2017. And for those people, they will only need to show 2 years work in the position in the preceding 3 years. The second eligibility group are those who were in Australia on any visa for 12 months whilst Australia's border was closed. So those persons may have had a student visa, they may have had a 408 visa, they could have been here on a tourist visa. There's a wide range of visas that could apply here, not just the 482 visa. Those people will need to spend 3 years working in the position in the preceding 4 years to transition to the permanent residence. Part-time work and unpaid leave due to COVID can be counted towards the 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 years. And there is no occupation list required or applicable for applicants. So as we said at the beginning, this pathway is available to holders of 482 visas with occupations in the short-term stream. So important there is that the applicant must hold a 482 visa. So if we look at the pathway for the first category, for those who held a 457 visa on or before 18 April 2017, if they still hold the 457 visa, they're not yet eligible to apply. Whilst most 457 visa holders will have already transitioned to a 482 visa, there are still many people who hold the 457 visa. For example, if they or their employer had an application refused, it went to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal and was successful at the tribunal, went back to the department and had a 457 visa granted. So there still are a number of people who actually hold the 457 visa. For those people, they will need to be renominated by their employer to obtain the 482 visa. All the usual requirements for both the employer and the visa holder would apply. That may include English language test, advertising, market salary, and having an occupation that is actually on the STSOL. Once those 457 visa holders have obtained the 482 visa, they merely need to add up the time spent on both the 457 and the 482. And once it has reached 2 years in the preceding 3 years, then they will be eligible to transition and apply for the employer nomination visa. The second group is a little bit more simple because that group already holds the 482 visa. So if the person has spent 12 months in Australia, all they will need to do is complete the 3 years of employment with the employer on the 482 visa and then move on to the ENS visa. Now there will be, because the 482 visa for the short-term candidates is usually only granted for 2 years, there may be a need for those people also to be renominated and obtained a fresh 482 visa, again, meeting all the usual requirements. But because there is no sunset clause on these new changes, it's interesting to note that there are other people who may be eligible to apply through this pathway. And that would include 457 visa holders who were granted after 18 April 2017, who also have spent the 12 months in Australia during the border closure period. These people would again need to be renominated for the 482 and complete 3 out of 4 years on the 457 and 482 visas for the one employer in the one position to move forward to the ENS. Similarly, there are 494 regional visa holders who may be interested in transferring to the 482 program, either because they would like to relocate with a new employer or perhaps an existing employer, but a metro location. Those candidates would need to have spent 12 months in Australia during the COVID period and could then enter the 482 program. Of course, the 494 visa holders have an alternative pathway to permanent residence by spending 3 years in regional Australia, but there may be a reason why, if they're not particularly committed to regional Australia or have would like to take another opportunity, then they may wish to access this, the 482 visa and later the ENS TRT 186 visa instead of the 191. And the final group are people who may or may not be presently in Australia, but were in Australia for 12 months during the February 20 to December 2021 period, perhaps as students, 485 visa holders, 408 visa holders, who have not yet been nominated by an employer. They can now enter this program by being nominated by an employer for an occupation on the short-term list and transition after 3 years to permanent resident. There's been a lot of hesitancy in these applicants to pursue that avenue, being nominated in a short-term occupation, because up until now there was no pathway to permanent residence. So there is a reward for them having spent time in Australia during the border closure period and a pathway forward. So as you can see, there are a broad group of people who may be able to access this program, which is great. So what are the next steps? The first step is for you to check your eligibility to join the program, because you either have or have held a 457 visa or 482 visa, or you may have the opportunity to be nominated by an employer into a short-term occupation. We will be sending out a checklist to you after this briefing so that you can tick off the eligibility criteria and see for yourself whether you may meet the program requirements. The second requirement, or the second step, is of course to discuss it with your employer. So this whole program is an employer nominated program, and the employer must be willing to travel with you on this journey, whether it's through being nominated for the 482, renominated for the 482, and of course, nominated for the permanent residence visa. So your employer should be willing. The third step would be to review your employer's eligibility. Do they have a genuine and continuing position available? Are they paying a market salary? Do their operations meet the department's requirements? Do they have the financial capacity to support an ongoing nomination? And where a 482 nomination is required, are they able to undertake labour market testing and show that there are no Australians available for the position? Again, subsequent to this briefing, we will send you a link where your employers can make a free call with us to determine their eligibility. And the final step is, once you've determined when you are eligible to apply, that you actually apply, and that will be the exciting day. Of course, if all of this sounds a little complicated, then know that we are here to support you as your migration superheroes. And as your superheroes, we'll take you on a journey from possible to probable. And we will support you and your employer from the initial advisory stage through the application preparation to a successful outcome. Your dreams are our business, and we would love to help you achieve your dream of living in Australia permanently. Please watch out for the following emails where you will get some additional resources and links. And I look forward to speaking to you and your employer shortly to determine your best migration action plan to move forward through this program. Thank you very much for attending today, and wishing you all the best and good luck.